of energy, and we're going to be doing this awesome painting today. What you do need is some paintbrushes handy. You want a larger kind of flat brush for the background. And I have my 1-inch flat brush with me today. I also have a smaller detail thinner brush. You can also use something about a 1/2 inch just for the background. And we're really just going to be using an orange color, but you can mix various shades. You can use yellow, orange, red, or any color of your choice. But symbolically, you can go with an orange because it does have that vibrancy and that in keeping with the energetic theme. And mandalas are just simply that. They are repetitive patterns creating over and over again. And this one is in the shape of a flower, and we will be going step by step in creating the background and going over the details for the repetitive mandala. So let's go ahead and get started. I have my water cup handy. I'm going to put some orange and yellow on my palette. And I'm going to start with my big flat brush. And first we're going to mix the colors like so that you have a little bit of yellow and orange on the brush at the same time. And if you don't want to use orange, of course, you can pick the color of your choice, whatever is on your heart today. Just remember to do the same type of brush strokes for the background. And I'm just going to pull some more yellow and orange and just work the entire background left to right. The hardest part of this is creating the background and allowing it to wait a little bit so it can dry, so that we can then start working on the details. And again, I'm just doing big strokes all the way across. Super simple, super easy. Kind of see the yellow peeking through. Again, some yellow and orange. And when you think about colors, you can sometimes associate them with feelings. So sometimes a blue or purple color, cool colors are symbolic of relaxation, serenity, calmness. And shades like this one are very symbolic of energy. And when we think of the sun, we think of fire and those kinds of sources of energy. We come back to the colors of yellow and orange and red to really symbolize those powerful themes. And again, we're just working our way completely down. You don't want it to be so unified in one color. You definitely want some streaks happening. It's not one solid look for this background. You want to really half and half the yellow and orange. And kind of buff it out all the way through. And as you're going through your painting, if you see kind of areas that are a little bit shiny, try to go over them as much as you can so that your painting can dry just a little quicker. Now, once our paint for the background is dry, it's up to you how you want to follow along the repetitive patterns. So some people find it easier to let the background dry and use a black magic marker or Sharpie because they have more control when doing the lines. So the only trick to that is really letting our background kind of dry. And another great way to ensure that it dries quickly is spreading any kind of paint on your background really thin so that there's no shininess left. Again, just back into the yellow and orange and just finishing off this background. So now I'm just going to take the brush and really pull the paint across and ensuring that there's no more shiny areas. And just like so. Pretty simple. If you decided to use another color, I would definitely use maybe like a lighter version. So if you wanted to do a cooler version, I would definitely do like a blue and a purple. But really, whatever's on your heart works. So for these patterns, like I said, some people might find it a little difficult to have control with these smaller patterns. So if you feel more comfortable, like I said, using a marker or using another black colored pencil or a ballpoint pen to create it, the key to using something other than paint is to definitely let this background kind of dry thoroughly. That way, when you put your magic marker or pen on here, it's a lot easier to see and you don't stop the pen or the marker from working. And then of course with the paint, when we work with the paintbrush, you want to take your time. And I mean, just slowly do it. It's not a marathon when you're creating these type of patterns. My number one tip when creating a line is to definitely use a thin tip. And when you're putting pressure on the paintbrush, you're not pressing completely flat. So you see how this brush kind of is completely flat and there's a lot of pressure when I put it onto the palette. You want to really barely touch and softly move across when creating a thin line using a liner brush. Another tip when you're getting into the color is to twist your brush into a point and coax the paint to create a point with your bristles to then have a little bit more control when you're doing your pattern. So you can of course use black. Black would show up against this background well. If you choose to do a darker color or a different color, or you want something more colorful, you can continue along the pattern with a different color. I just always like the idea of a black line. I feel like it pops more and it adds a lot of strength to the picture. And it gives that design element that really makes it look like a home decor style. So with our black paint, I do have a decent acrylic black paint that's pretty pliable. Sometimes you get it a little bit thick, but I do always recommend to wet your brush as we're waiting for our background to dry. You want to kind of prep up your black and make sure that when you're pulling the black, it's pretty pliable. It's not very sticky. You want to add a little bit of water and make sure that when you're painting, it's very smooth. So it gives an easier time when you're trying to add color. And then, like I said, to coax your brush into a point like so, you just spin it on the side and voila, you'll start creating a line. Now, definitely talking back to the pressure, when you press really hard, your line becomes thicker. So that was full pressure. That was pressing hard so that all my bristles are touching the plate. And for this one, for this particular style, you want to make sure that you twist and you're lightly touching. So for example, you're just lightly touching, barely touching your canvas. and creating your straight line and pulling it across, just like so. So pressure will determine how thick your line comes out. The harder you press down, the thicker your line is created. And when trying to do a nice thin line, just softly touch and let the bristle really make the line. And the technique that we'll be using is creating the line. And then when we kind of stop, we're going short strokes, we kind of go back into the line and just pull forward. So we're kind of going back into the line and pulling forward, back into the line and pulling forward. And that's how we'll be creating the majority of the patterns. So for the most part, my background is pretty dry. And we're going to follow the patterns. I want you to also see that we will be working in levels. So we'll start off small and then we'll work our way outward. And if it's not the same exact size, if it's not the same exact design, that's okay. If you want to do a repeat of a row of pattern, feel free. Just go ahead and take your time with it. And as we move along with the pattern, the sizing will start to take place. So don't worry too much about where everything is placed just yet, because as we start from the right to the left, the picture will grow naturally. So don't be afraid. Don't think that you'll be making a mistake. Try your best. The only kind of measuring that we're doing right now is just this first little half semicircle that we'll begin with. And so you want to kind of determine on your right hand side of your painting where the center is. And that's pretty much all the measuring that you're going to be doing. So don't think that, you know, a lot of times with mandala, they want you to measure so that the patterns fit within the measurements. Don't worry about that. The only measurement that we're worried about is this just little mini semicircle and determining, okay, this is about the halfway point on my page. Okay, so we're going to get started. I've watered down my black. I'm twisting and coaxing it into a kind of point. And now I'm going to just put some small dots and where I think the center of my painting is. And then my favorite thing to do is to connect the dots. So now we're just going to create a semicircle and just, I'm barely touching the canvas. And just like that, we have our first patterned semicircle. And then right in the center of that, I will put a straight line. Simple enough. And so I'm going to place a dot at the next starting point. So it's about a centimeter from there. I'm just going to place a dot and a dot here. So it's about a centimeter away. And go ahead back into my black paint, add water if necessary to make it easier to work with, and twist. And now I'm putting my wrist on my work surface to kind of balance it out, but you can also use your pinky on the ground like this, pinky on your tabletop rather, to kind of put the pressure on your hand and get a more stable line going. And I'm working in very short strokes. I'm not trying to make this line that's going parallel to my semicircle. I'm not trying to make it in one turn. I'm trying to slowly work around, take my time, and create that next line. Simple enough. So now you can slowly see how we're not really measuring, we're just kind of guessing how far the starting point is going to start. So the next form patterns are just going to be these little petals, and they're going to be about 1 centimeter wide. And you want to try to make them all the same size. And to do that, you just need some patience. And of course, to use the technique where you're slowly moving, you're not trying to do one big stroke as we go around our semicircle. So I'm going to start where I feel comfortable. And the way that I feel comfortable is now I'm going to just turn my painting off to the side. However your hand feels comfortable working, I'm going to work from the left over to the right. That way, whatever I'm working on, I don't smudge my hand on it. So now I'm going to put a dot here of how high I think I want my petals to go. And I've created just another dot to kind of measure out, okay, this is how high I'd like my petals to start. So if you can see those little dots, those are my starting points. And now I'm finding a comfortable angle where I can create these petals. And again, I'm just slowly moving and I'm not going down and up. I'm just starting at the top of this area here and curving down. Starting at the top and curving down. Again, starting at the top, curving down, and just working my way around. Starting at the top. Trying to eyeball the same width. So starting from the top and curving down. Start from the top, curve down. And work your way all the way around. Just like so. So the next set of petals is ready to run. And now, if we're going off of our inspiration, we have a larger set of petals. And now this time it has an indentation here. So the next step will be creating a petal that's about 2 widths of the pattern below. So let me show you what I mean. Again, I'm going to put it in an angle that makes my hand comfortable. And I'm going to start and create a petal that's about 2 widths apart. And again, about 2 of these petals apart. About 2 petals apart. And now this is a full U happening. So I'm starting at the bottom and creating a full kind of horseshoe. And make sure that I finish the pattern off the page, just like so. And now in between, I'm just creating a little comma going towards the center of this petal. And if I need more paint, I'm just going to grab some more paint Make sure that it's wet and easy to work with. And then just lightly using some pressure to make the shape of a comma for that petal. And now the next level of the inspiration has you drawing a outline right around that petal. So now we're going to take our time, and with some short strokes and very light pressure, we're going to now kind of create an outline right above those petals. Again, I'm going to twist my paint, my paper where I find comfortable, and I'm going to start kind of where the center meets. So that's kind of where I start. And I'm going to work my way backwards. So I'm going to find the center, and now I'm going to work my way backwards, being parallel. So I find the center between the two, and I kind of start right there. And now I follow the curve of the petal backwards. And the same thing here. I kind of find where the two meet, put a dot there, and work my way backwards. And as I'm working, I'm also turning the page just to make it a little more comfortable. Just like so. And of course, if you're finding that your painting is looking a little splotchy or a little too watered down, you can always take a paper towel and just stamp and press, and you can go over it. So just follow that technique again. This was just a little bit watery, this level of paint. So I'm just kind of going over it with a thicker application of paint. Again, twisting so my brush is into a point. And just like so, I'm following the middle, putting a dot here, and kind of working my way backwards. And working my way backwards. So that this next level of petals has an outline. So just a little closer so that you can see. I find the center, I put a dot, and I work my way backwards. Find the center, put a dot, and connect it to the previous one. And then that's just how I've worked my way around for that level. Again, this is our inspiration. You can follow along with this exact design, or you can take different elements, but continue to grow around the design. So for the next level, I'm going to put a dot and another dot. And we are going to create a semicircle around the petals and just leave a little bit of space so that we can highlight with some lines going down. So just a little bit closer view. We're just going to create a semicircle thin line going around. So again, loading up the brush, lots of loading, lots of twisting, making sure that our liner brush is doing the heavy lifting. And I'm going to try to leave a little space between the semicircle and these petals. So I'm kind of just going to find where the center of these petals are and put a little dot the same distance all the way around, just so I know I have enough space. I'm putting a dot, finding the center, putting a dot so I have enough space to create this line design. So I'm just finding the center here, putting a dot, finding the center, putting a dot. And now I'm just going to use my short strokes to connect the dots. So light pressure, straight thin line. And I'm trying to connect the dots So let this curve. And I'm working back, kind of going over my line, trying to make it all the same thickness. I'm trying to keep it as thin as possible. Again, just connecting the dots and working our way around. Connecting the dots, working our way around. And just going over the areas just so the line creates the same thickness as best I can. If it's not perfect, that's okay. Just try your best. Okay. So now that we've created that next level, the design element here is just a little straight line down inside. So however you feel comfortable in starting, again, you can always turn and just start with very light pressure, drawing a line straight down. And just creating this little chain in between the gap and the line, between the petal, and working our way. Straight line, and all the lines as they're going straight down, they're kind of facing towards the center. So as I'm kind of going around and creating these straight lines, they're all kind of pointing towards the center. And you want to try your best to keep it the same width apart. And putting light pressure, and definitely the repetitiveness adds to the calming of the process. So you want to take your time. You want to worry about, is this enough paint on here? Am I doing a light pressure? And just worried about taking your time and trying your best and turning it around until it's comfortable for you to work. And again, all the lines are pointing towards the center, very much like how a clock would have its arms. It's almost like you're drawing minutes on the clock. They're all kind of facing towards the center, pointing towards the top and the bottom. And just work your way around with light pressure. Stock up on some black and twist it to a tip as much as you need. Don't worry if you're not as fast as me. Just take your time and complete the pattern. Just like so. And then once we've completed that next level, just like that, I'm going to do the same thing with dots and create just a thick black line right above. So that's our next level, is just doing some dots, kind of finding the center of the petal and just putting a dot center, putting a dot, finding the center, putting a dot, reloading up on some paint, finding the center, putting a dot, center, dot, and again, just working my way around, reloading, restocking on the paint, and now connecting. Turning the page, however, is comfortable for me. I'm finding it comfortable to work backwards today. And just do one thick line, trying to move slow. And now going the next way, just connecting the dots. And going back into the line, connecting to the next dot, back into the line, and the final dot, like so. And now we can give our liner brush a break. We're going to create some dots using any kind of paintbrush. You can try to draw the dots, create the dots yourself, but I'm just going to use the tip of a regular old paintbrush. And these dots are going to be created one right next to each other. So the same kind of idea. We're going to create a line of dots all the way around next level. So you just want to stamp into some black and stamp it down. Just like so. I'm going to find the center here and just kind of work around, find the center of this petal and work around center of this petal, center of this petal, stamp, center, and stamp, center, and stamp. And then now the hard part is just filling in the gaps with some dots. So you're connecting the dots with some more dots. Take your time, stamp it out. The more pressure, the bigger the dot. You can make them all the same size dot. You can make them all different sizes. You can make them cascading in sizes. And if you want to go over a dot, you can. And try to make them touch each other as close as possible so that it looks like a chain. And you're just going to work your way around, stamping on the bottom of your brush and creating a chain of dots. Pour that in my water and just a close-up of the dots being created. And you want to work that all the way around. Then back to my liner brush. I'm going to dry it up a little. And back to twisting. And the next level is just a line around that. So I'm just going to find the center again of these petals. Just to give myself a better chance of connecting the dots and making a straight line. So I'm just finding the center, twisting to a point, and I'm going to go backwards here, short stroke, and pull, short stroke, pull. And then connect the dots going the opposite way now. And amazing how when you look at the picture from far away, the shapes and the style of the look looks complicated, but when you break it down level by level, it's very doable. Just like so. And then now the next area will be another petal similar to this first row, just slightly bigger. So we're just working on the petals again. And I'm just using the center here and the center here just to eyeball the size. Going back around from there and putting a dot at the height that I want my petals. Coming over here, the center here, and just putting a dot where however high I want my next level of petals to be, which should be about a half an inch. The center here and about a half an inch. And then I'm going to create a U shape to go in between. So I'm going to use the dot. And similar to the lines for the clock, I'm going to come around with a full U shape. I'm just taking my time, getting an angle that's a little more comfortable. Twisting to a point, using my pinky for stability, and making a full U go in the opposite direction. Full U. Trying my best to keep the curve similar and matching to the others, and trying not to go higher than my dots, just using them as a guide for my height. Adding a little water to make my paint a little more pliable and twisting on its side so it moves more like a pen or a marker smoother. And adding some water, getting a full U petal, working my way around and around. And turning as I go because it's just a little more comfortable. And again, being mindful using the dots to see how high. And then for this next petal design, it's just a parallel smaller U and then a dot. So I'm going to repeat it, create another, and dot inside. So create another U in the inside. Create another U. I have a lot of paint on my brush, so I'm going to try to take off the excess paint and just twist and U. Letter U. And just get a U going all the way around. And then we'll come back with the end of our brush to put a dot inside. Parallel U. And work our way around. Then we have our handy dandy opposite end of our brush. And a little, ooh, that one was a little watery, so we're just gonna take our paper towel and just stamp that little area. It's a little watery. No big deal. Do a tester dot. Perfect. So bottom in here. Take the back of your paintbrush if you'd like, or you can just use your liner brush as well and make a little dot on the inside of this petal. So we have a U-shaped petal with a U-shaped petal line inside, and we're finishing off with a little dot at the bottom. Making it interesting, intricate, repetitive, and like so. Then same thing, we're gonna skip every other petal for this next turn. So this turn is going to go now every other, the top is going to be in every other petal, and it's going to be about definitely a wider stance. So I'm going to skip when drawing this petal and kind of go like leapfrog over. And the way that I'm going to remember how to do it is I'm going to just, again, use dots to gauge the size. So back to my handy dandy liner brush. Let's use some dots to help us know where our center is. So I have one in the center of this second one is going to be the height of my first petal. And then we move along. So I'm going to start here and start here. And that is my petal. Now we'll move here. This one, this is my middle. I'm going to put a dot there. And I'm going to just move along just like that. So as you can see, this center, this one is my center, and I'm just moving along. So now this, I'm playing leapfrog and I'm skipping this one. So this one's my center. I'm going to find a height. And then I'm going to just come around like so. So I didn't touch here, and the starting point is the center there. And I'm moving my paper around so it's more comfortable to create this. So I find we skip this one. Finding my center. Skipping this one. This is my center. And I'm coming around. So we're playing leapfrog. We start and end skipping the middle. So I'm going to find the center here. Start. And twisting and creating a point. Again, figuring the height. And next petal down. And then the shape and design in the inside, once we've done this, looks a little quirky and a little curved. But really, if you can make a question mark, you can make this swirl. So we're going to do a repetitive question mark inside. Find the center, go backwards, go forwards. Find the center, go backwards, forwards. Find the center, go backwards, go forwards. Find the center, go backwards and forwards. And finish it off the page like so. And then a little question mark swirl goes inside of this petal. So we have a question mark swirl, question mark swirl. So just pretty much create a question mark inside every petal. Twist it to a point and create a question mark. Question mark like so. Thanks, Susan. Question mark like so. And then we get to my favorite part, which are the larger petals, which are fun to create and watch them come together. So once we get this little question mark swirl going, this little hook around and down, around and down, hook around and down. We're going to practice our petal making. So we have several petals. If you want to do it your way, you're more than welcome to. This is just, of course, an inspiration. The way that the petals work is this: they just have a curved line that comes to a point. So curved line that comes to a point, and it's the same kind of leapfrog system that we did here. So the center will start, and you create your center, and then start and stop, and we're skipping a petal every time. So let me show you. So I have this petal we're going to skip. So my line is going to kind of come off the page. So the starting point will start here and start here for my first petal. Then we have this one. I'm going to have my petal end here. And so we are curving and come to a point and start and curve, twist my brush to a point and curve and come to a point. So again, we're skipping this middle one. So that's going to be my center of my petal. So I'm going to make a dot out here because that's where my dot is going to end. And I'm starting here. And it's a curved line and comes to a point. And twist. I'm going to add a little water just to make this a little bit more manageable. Twisting to a point, and I'm going to curve and come to a point. Again, this is the petal we're going to skip, so that's my center. I'm going to make a dot, and I'm going to curve and come to a point, and I'm going to start here and curve to a point. This is my skipped one. So again, that's my center. I'm going to draw dot, however tall I want my petal. And I'm going to, almost looks like we're creating sunflower petals. Whoop. A little runaway black spot there. Just stamp it in, and you can cover it with some orange paint when it's fully dry. Put another coat. And come around and go to a point. So again, we're going to skip over one. This is the center. Put my point here. Come around. And come to a point. Come around. Come to a point. And I'm just going to draw a curve here because it's coming off of the page. So that is the first level. And then we're going to do a parallel petal right around it. So once you see the parallel petal, this is our inspiration. We're just going to literally draw a larger petal just right around it. So larger petal just right around the existing. Twist your brush to a point. And the larger petal right around the existing one. So just literally creating a parallel line, kind of outlining the petal that we just did. So coming from that same spot. Watching these petals sprout really just adds some life to our picture. Just like so. And then we're going to create the final petal on the outside, which is the starting point is on the top between the two tips. So here's towards the top here. And this is off to the page, and it just comes out a little more pointy. The starting point is here and here. And this petal is a little more rounded and then comes to a point. A little rounded and comes to a point. Starting point here and here. And it's a little rounded and comes to a point. A little rounded and comes to a point. Starting point is here and here. So it's a little rounded and comes to a point. Rounded and comes to a point. So those are our petals, and then the detail work is really up to you. You can, of course, copy what we have here or get creative using smaller lines inside. So I'm just going to continue following the design here. And then just retracing my steps, kind of following smaller lines inside and smaller lines inside and straight. Smaller lines inside and straight. And you can really make this as simple or as complex as you'd like by going over patterns, creating interest with lines, adding petals. If you like the look of the dots, adding more dots. So you can definitely make this your own. Adding lines on the outside, on the inside, going down the center. Layering it as much as you'd like. And again. Moving along. Adding the lines, adding details, adding interests, adding petals. And if you like these designs and want to learn more styles, there's an infinite amount of patterns and repetitive measuring, exact measuring. This was more freestyle and, you know, using your eye to kind of make it look measured. But a true mandala, you could use measuring tools and make everything super exact. This is more just for creative purposes and to really give you that feeling of the process. So we have the inspiration here. I'm going to go ahead and continue to do some smaller petals on the inside. You can continue to do the same. I'm just going to create smaller line on the inside, and then just work some petals, smaller line on the inside. And like I said, you can really make this your own. Experiment with pattern, experiment with sizing, experiment with texture and lines. Just go ahead inside here. And again, inside here. Creating lines in there. And again in here. And then start with a dot on our furthest petal. And build our pattern going that way.
Just want to keep you on task.
No problem.
Everybody's enjoying it. It's so meditative. It's so zen.
It is, and it's
We're
repetitive.
in the
And really,
flow.
this is our intent to keep on filling in as many petals as you like, as many lines, as many dots as you'd like. This can really go on infinitely, which is what makes it so great. So if you like the style, I'm gonna leave the inspiration kind of close so that you can continue to copy and work on it. I know we're running out of time, but it really is one of my favorite ways to relax, ways to spend a time focusing on positive energy, focusing on relaxing energy. And really it helps so much with, guiding us through some crazy summer weather. When you're feeling a little stressed about the heat, about anything else going on, it's always good to cool off and slow your breathing and relax, doing repetitive pattern work and creating these